So how bad of a day was this for the defense? Let's bring in former federal prosecutor Renato Mariotti, high-profile defense attorney Mark Geragos, and New York trial attorney Misty Marris. We've also got Sean Spicer with us right now, News Nation political contributor and Trump's former White House press secretary. Thank you all for joining us. I want to start with you, Misty. So now we've got David Pecker, the former publisher of the National Enquirer, trying to help Trump in the election. And that's a key point. They made that clear today. He was going to help him in the election. How significant is that?
It's really speaking to one of the defenses that we anticipate is going to come up. So Trump is going to argue that these hush money payments were for many other reasons. Business reputation, his family. He wanted to silence these Stormy Daniels, Karen McDonough, and the doorman in this case because they were going to have information that would be embarrassing to him. So that's central because remember, this is falsification of business documents to cover up or in furtherance of another crime. That crime, presumably campaign finance laws, that these payments should have been campaign donations or qualified as that. So the prosecution has to show that that crime was committed. This testimony speaks to the heart of that. Pecker testified that the reason that they had this meeting, Trump, Michael Cohen, and himself, was because of the election and to suppress stories that were negative for Trump and also to put out stories that were negative for his political opponents. So it speaks to the heart of one of Trump's defenses.
Mark, yesterday you said this could have gone back years in terms of Pecker helping Trump, that this agreement may have gone back a long while. Maybe it was to keep things from Melania, who knows? But they were very clear today, Mark, that the agreement was made in 2015. And again, it was to help Trump in the 2016 election. So this doesn't seem like a good thing for Trump, Mark.
Not only that, but the other thing that Misty just mentioned that I think is even more problematic is the putting out stories that were negative on his competitors. That is something, if I'm the prosecution, I'm going to be hammering home, because that shows, look, you can embrace this idea, I didn't want Melania to know, I didn't want the family to know, but when you're doing hit pieces on your competitors at the very same time, that is, is his kryptonite here.
Yeah, it's a good point. And again, they're just trying to tie it all back to the election. I want to show you some of the headlines that you just mentioned. One of them was Donald Trump blasts Ted Cruz's dad for photo with JFK assassin. Bungling surgeon Ben Carson left sponge in patient's brain. Again, these are headlines that David Pecker came up with when he was publisher of the National Enquirer, all related back to the election. It seems like, Renato, this was sort of a slam dunk for the prosecution, sort of connecting that together, again, tying everything back to the election.
I agree. I mean, look, there's a reason why the prosecution's calling Mr. Pecker as a witness. There's a reason why they put him first on their list. They thought that not only is he going to help them, but he's going to be a very solid piece for them. You never, when you're a prosecutor, put your flippers, your more difficult witnesses, the Michael Cohens of the world, in the very beginning of your case. So I'm not surprised that they let off with somebody like him. And it is strong. You know, as Misty mentioned a moment ago, their focus is going to be on trying to connect this to an election election fraud crime, essentially the supposed conspiracy to defraud the election. That is what they're going for a felony. So I think that's going to be absolutely key. I think the most vital witnesses are going to be obviously in the middle of the case, the Michael Cohens of the world, some of those Trump Organization witnesses and so on.
The whole catch and kill aspect of this, Sean, it's so shady. And look, I get that politics are shady and celebrities are shady and they do all sorts of things behind the scenes. But is this unusual in the world of politics, Sean? Is this just a Trump thing, or do other politicians do this, where they pay publishers to say they're going to take stories just so that they'll secretly kill them?
No, I mean, I've never heard anyone do that, but I also, again, let's be clear on what's going on here. I mean, Donald Trump denies that that's what happened, that these were payments to Michael Cohen, his attorney at the time. But if I can, I just want to take a step back, because something that Misty said was important here, that to take this from a bookkeeping misdemeanor that it was, and it occurred in 2015, 2-year statute of limitations, and what they call enhance it, you have to prove that it was in furtherance of another crime, which is what she said. Well, that other crime is seemingly campaign finance related, which is what the FEC, the Federal Election Commission, the Department of Justice, the Southern District of New York, and Alvin Bragg's predecessor in the office, Cy Vance, have all passed on and said there was nothing there. This, I mean, think about it. These circumstances that we're talking about today occurred in 2015. It's 2024. All of the statute of limitations that would normally apply have well expired. If this wasn't Donald Trump, we wouldn't be even close to having this conversation right now.
Sean, this isn't like we're talking about a former president who committed treason here. I mean, this is the whole thing is about $130,000 that went to a porn star. Porn star. Even the last, I was just telling Misty, the fact that the name of the last guy is Pecker. It's salacious. It's fun to talk about. But Sean, do you think voters really care? I mean, politically, does any of this really matter, or is it just make for like fun TV?
Well, I would say that I'm not sure that I agree with your definition of fun, but I think it's salacious TV. That being said, does it matter? And I think that the point that I would make with respect to this is twofold. One, tell me something you don't know about Donald Trump, and I mean, like, give me a break. I mean, I think the idea that anyone's looking at this news and saying, really, I didn't think anything like this could possibly happen with Donald Trump. You've been living under a rock for the last 10 years. So anyone whose, I think, mind is being made up by this was probably not going to vote for Trump in the first place. And secondly, there's so much baked in with Donald Trump as an individual. You think about, I was there on the 2016 campaign with the Access Hollywood tape, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, and all the things that we went through 4 years of his presidency. The idea that this is the thing that's going to tip the scale is pretty much ridiculous.
Yeah, it's a good point. Mark, how do you think this is playing with the jury? Because obviously Sean's talking about politically tip the scales in terms of voters, but really it's just those jurors that are going to matter in terms of the trial. What do you think they're thinking right now?
You know, it's always tough to say. If you got a couple of these jurors who you believe were going to do what they're instructed to do. Remember, they're instructed not to make up their mind, not to talk about the case, literally all the way through until they get into the jury room. I often laugh when people say, well, jurors have made up their mind after opening statements. I say jurors have made up their mind as soon as you select them. I don't care who you are, the most persuasive orator of all time. You're not going to turn somebody and their life experiences around in a matter of weeks. So they come to this with a predetermined worldview. How does this play? Well, right now, obviously, the prosecution is up. But, you know, I don't want to make it seem like we're doing an ESPN game day analysis. The fact is that you're supposed to wait as the evidence unfolds. You'll see cross-examinations. You'll see the prosecution's going to have some really bad days. And I will tell you, if the defense is able to score points in the prosecution's case in chief, as my father used to say, it's a rare case that gets better for the prosecution after they rest. So the idea here is do your damage, do it now in the prosecution case in chief, and let's wait and see if the jurors are receptive to that.
Misty, another big part of the day, in addition to David Pecker's testimony, was the start of today where they had this gag order conference, and the judge was not happy with Trump's attorneys. I mean, it got pretty heated, and basically they're not happy that Trump continues to go out on Truth Social, say things about witnesses, and he didn't make a decision whether he's going to punish Trump, but he didn't seem happy. No. How do you think that's going to play out?
Well, Brian, I think the defense attorney, they were advocating the way that they need to advocate, of course, advocating for their client. But the judge said, you're losing credibility with your arguments. Sometimes there's facts and you have to deal with them. So I do think the judge made a limited gag order, meaning that everything is not off limits, but specifically jurors and witnesses are off limits in what he puts out there in the public sphere. So to the extent that those 10 issues that the prosecution raised relate to jurors and witnesses, I do think we're going to see a punishment. It's likely to be financial and an admonishment. It's not going to be more than that at this point. But the judge wants to keep control of the courtroom, keep control outside of the courtroom to that extent. Yeah. So I think we're going to see a decision on that will have some consequence.
And Renato, the consequence that we're told is $1,000 per violation of the gag order. Could eventually lead to jail time. But I'm just thinking, I mean, Trump's, wanting to play politics here. $1,000 to him is very, very little. Do you think he'll just continue to speak out and say, almost screw it, I'll just pay the money?
Absolutely. And I think that's been his playbook thus far. I mean, he really tried in the New York Attorney General case, the civil case, to turn that into a circus. I mean, he was, attacking the judge, attacking the judge's staff, trying to goad the judge really into doing something that would turn it into more of a circus than it really was. That is really, what Trump was trying to do, really to distract from the evidence and the findings in that case. I think he's going to do the same thing here. He does not want people talking about a hush money scheme or false statements in business records. He wants to turn this into a circus, turn it into a war. You had put up a moment ago a fundraising, pitch that he was making, effectively saying, "I'm fighting for you. I'm doing this for you." In other words, I'm attacking the judge and I'm disobeying his orders for you in some way. So I think it's just part of a political or press or PR. It certainly isn't part of a political strategy.
Yeah,
Brian, can I just make one quick point?
Yeah, sure. Go ahead, Sean.
The word attack, the word attacking the judge and the witnesses keeps getting thrown around. Let's be clear. I think there's a fine line between attacking and pointing out the facts. Calling Michael Cohen a liar, an individual who was found guilty of perjury, which is what lying is fact-based, not attacking the witness. Referring to the fact that, pointing out the fact that the judge's daughter makes millions of dollars for clients who have a vested interest in seeing Trump found guilty because Adam Schiff and other Democratic clients of hers literally are raising money on the backs of this is a fact. Pointing that out isn't attacking her. It's a fact. I mean, and then making the point, hold on, lastly, making the point that the judge actually made contribution to Democrats is not attacking. It's pointing out facts.
Go ahead, Renato. I mean, Michael Cohen is a liar. He's right, Renato.
Convicted liar.
Yeah.
But here's another fact is when you're disobeying the judge's orders and when you're taking pot shots at the judge in the middle of a trial, it's not a legal strategy. Okay, I've tried a lot of cases. I handle a lot of cases across the country. It's common sense that that's not a legal strategy. There's no legal strategy here. It is purely a press or PR or political strategy. That's what that is. And it's not going to help you in the four corners of that court.
That's the difference between Renato and me. Sometimes you got to have a legal strategy that involves pushing back on judges who overstep. And frankly, I will tell you that I find it offensive as a defense lawyer. Mind you, I'm no Trump fan, but I've found it, and I've argued, Brian, I've talked to you about it. I think this idea that somehow we let the prosecution beat the hell out of a defendant, go leading up to the trial, and then we want to gag the defense. The whole idea of Shepard versus Maxwell, which is the U.S. Supreme Court decision in this area, was to protect the defense. It wasn't to muzzle the defense, and somehow that's been perverted over the last 60 years. So I think, frankly, this idea of a gag order is really kind of silly. If you want to do something, sequester the jury.
And in the middle of a presidential campaign, too. I mean, you're telling him he can't speak out when he's trying to run for president. Yeah. Misty's making eyes at me. She's making a lot of hand movements.
And I actually agree with Mark wholeheartedly. I'm a defense lawyer as well. But this particular gag order is limited. He actually can talk about the judge. He actually can talk about the DA. It's only certain areas that are out of bounds. And I agree with the issue of Michael Cohen, but there is something about preserving witnesses, making sure that they don't feel intimidated, and especially the jury. We know a lot of them had anxiety going into the courtroom. We want to make sure that they can make a fair and impartial decision and aren't part of anything that's going on.
Yeah, I do feel for the jurors. And this is only day 2. We got to go for 6 weeks, so it's going to be a wild ride. Sean Spicer, Renato Mariotti, Misty Marris, Mark Garagos, thank you all for coming on. We appreciate it.